Hey, everybody, it's Bob. Welcome back. Today in the studio, Chris Piehota. Come on, let's talk. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Today we got Chris Piehota in the studio with us. I want to give you a little background on Chris before we get here, and it's going to be a great conversation today. Chris served in the government for years, 25 years, retired as a senior executive inside the FBI, wrote a really good book, which I read and I don't read, and I thought it was a great book. Wanted the FBI Once Knew. We're going to get into that a little bit here. So great book. I would urge you to go out and pick it up. He has a great career, an interesting career. I had to look at this up, actually. Before the Bureau and before coming into the government, Chris was actually a metrologist, if I said that right. And he worked down at Kennedy Space Center on the Space Shuttle program for many years down there before he came into the FBI. And then before that, he was in the United States Air Force at the laboratory with supervision and quality assurance monitor, a lot of other things he did in 83 to 89. And interestingly enough, Chris is starting his own YouTube channel and obviously does a lot of consulting around the world for different things that he has expertise in. But before we get started, one, I want to thank you, but do 2 seconds on a metrologist. Tell me exactly what a metrologist is.
All right. First of all, thank you for letting me visit with you and your audience. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you.
Great to see you again, Bob. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
All right. So let's get this out of the way. Metrology is not meteorology.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Meteorology, the whole weatherman thing is cool. Metrology, not cool.
Not cool at all.
Not even close. Metrology is the science of measurement and quantification.
Oh,
okay.
Really?
Very quickly, at the higher levels of metrology, we, metrologists, measure and quantify and verify accuracy, performance. We give tolerance on things. Like when you were looking.
I get why you were at the Space Shuttle.
Right.
I can see that now.
So when I left, my areas of operation, so to speak, in the metrology area, I did platinum resistance thermometry. I did optical and microwave power, and we did helium leak rate analysis in the Space Shuttle.
Of course, why not?
Yeah, the Space Shuttle fuel systems. And at the time, there were 3 systems that were built by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. 3 of them existed in the world. We had one in my lab, the Navy had one, and NIST had one. So I did that for Kennedy Space Center. And quick, everybody says, why'd you leave? I said, well, I couldn't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. Plus, the shuttle program had already peaked, right? It was on the other side of its program life.
Yeah.
And every time it took off, we held our breaths and we were scared.
Yeah.
And every time it came back, we held our breath and we were scared.
Wow.
We would go up to the top of the buildings and we would stand and listen for it because you could hear 2 sonic explosions as it re-entered the atmosphere. And you'd see it all of a sudden and it would just fall out of the sky. People say it flew. That is not true. It was like playing Frisbee with a manhole cover.
Really?
Right? And then I said, all right, I got to get out of here. And I decided I want to go back in the military. I was in the National Guard at the time.
Yeah.
I was going to officer candidate school. I had also applied for a couple of law enforcement jobs, one being the FBI.
Yeah.
Bureau calls me up on a Monday, says, hey, you still interested? I said, sure.
Yeah, be here Friday or whatever.
Yeah. Can you be here this Saturday?
Oh, yeah, no, there's no doubt. I got that same call on a Friday. Be here on Monday.
Exactly. And then I said, sure. And I got my acceptance letter 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
As I was already at
Quantic. Yeah, no, I had the exact same experience.
Metrology in a nutshell, not cool, but it's a necessary evil to when you make sure things are accurate. That's what we did. We tested accuracy.
I can guarantee you just educated a bunch of people because I can guarantee.
Well, I don't know if I educated them. I probably bored them a little bit, but I don't know about education.
I want to talk about, and we can go anywhere you want to go today because I'm really looking forward to talking to you. Obviously, we worked together for years and had a great relationship. But I read your book, and let's talk about your book. First of all, I've written 3 books.
Congratulations.
Thanks. But writing a book is not a small undertaking. I know. And so, what made you want to write the book? And then let's talk about what the book is actually about for a little bit.
Well, I didn't want to write a book. Right, I would sit in my living room and complain to my wife. Yeah. And so one day she finally got sick of listening to me complain and said, listen, you can tell me all these things and that's great and I'll sit and listen. But all of these things that you learned and all the things you were taught and all the experiences you had are going to be lost with you.
Yeah.
If you don't somehow memorialize these things and then share them with people. It's all going to go away. So I sat and I thought about it, and I said, all right, I'll write a book, but I'm not going to write a book. There's a different bunch of flavors out there of books about the FBI. I'm not going to do cases. I'm going to do my experience, where I think the FBI kind of went off its course as you and I knew it, and how to get it back on course. Because there's, everybody wants to kick them in the shins and tell them where they are not doing well. Okay, they did bring some of that on themselves. But I'm also going to say, here's where you can get this back. And my book's about what the FBI was to me, what it should be for the American people, and how do we get it back there when it comes to trust and confidence in the Bureau. It's kind of a sport right now out there to criticize the Bureau and kind of kick them in the shins. And again, they don't help themselves out at times. So that's why I wrote the book, was to provide that kind of clarity on this is how the FBI got to where it is now, and here's how we move forward.
So when you think about, the Bureau, how it should have been or how it was when you came in, let's talk about that. What did you think it was? I know when I came in, obviously we didn't even talk about counterterrorism. It was all drugs, gangs, and violent crimes.
Right.
But let's talk about that. What did you think, or how did you see the Bureau when you first got into it?
Same thing. The old G-men, you see it on TV.
Tommy
you see
guns and a fedora.
Absolutely, yeah. Shootouts, car chases, all that good stuff that we never did.
Yeah.
That I never got to do.
Sure.
But what I saw was an organization that was that pinnacle of law enforcement, set the standards, the professionalism, all that good stuff that you saw, Joe Friday.
Yeah.
How could you not like that, right? Mm-hmm. So when I got to the Bureau, I came in and I joined the Bureau, Bob, with zero fanfare, right? The greatest sense of humility and gratitude to be part of the organization. It's a historic organization.
Sure.
And now I was charged with helping protect the American people, uphold the Constitution. Again, what's not to like there? So I never got to work in the criminal programs, because when I went to the Newark field office, which, Newark is Newark, 24 hours, something's on fire, something's burning, lights and sirens everywhere. But we had just gotten over I got there in, the mid-'90s, and we had just had the first World Trade Center bombing in 93. So everybody was still kind of trying to figure that out in that area. Did some work with the crim guys, but I went. They were pushing people toward more of the national security programs, counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and the weapons of mass destruction program. It was just starting up. Yeah, it was just starting up. Everybody was wondering, like, what is this, right? So I kind of went that way and found that, crim work is great and it's necessary because that's the immediate impact to our societal health, right? Health and welfare of our communities. But there were these activities going on out there that it was a kind of a shadow world of counterterrorism, counterintelligence, where we also had to protect the American people from things that they really didn't see day to day.
Yeah.
So that's how I saw the Bureau when I first got there. It was the crime-fighting organization. Again, the dragon slayers, all the Silence of the Lambs and all that good stuff. But when I got there, it's like, there's a lot more to look at here.
And so when you look down the road, in your book, especially when you talk about how the Bureau transitioned, let's talk about that a little bit. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I mean, 9/11 happened, right?
Sure.
Tragedy. But the Bureau wasn't ready for it. The Bureau was still a cops and robbers organization. Basically, how it works. They go out and do something. We generally respond. Mm-hmm. We go out and pick them up, send them to jail, right? With the U.S. Attorney's Office. We didn't see the operational horizon, right? We weren't watching counterterrorism for what it was becoming. We knew what it was. And we didn't see it as a problem that was going to come to American soil. And basically, Bob, we had our tails kicked, right? Determined adversary, good planning and execution, and we were still largely doing counterterrorism work as an administrative function, not a hardcore operational function of interdiction and all those type of things. And they were better than us. They were better than we were, and as a result, Americans died. People died. So that's where I saw that harsh shift, that transition after 9/11. Director Mueller had just come on board. And the FBI was in jeopardy of being split into multiple components.
I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Right.
I think that was, I think, very true.
It was very close to happening.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
The people on the Hill wanted to split the FBI into different components. Director Mueller was able to stay that decision, get the Bureau another lease on life, but he had to make some contrition for the real and perceived failures that happened on the Bureau side. Now, there was enough failure to go around in the entire government, right? But all of our intelligence partners kind of slunk back into the shadows.
Right.
And the Bureau took it on the chin, rightfully so. We did some things that were probably a little short-sighted on some counterterrorism matters, but we had to change from being the cops and robbers organization, the world's greatest law enforcement agency, to being pushed into that national security, domestic security organization. Massive culture change, violent shifts in how the Bureau saw itself, how people inside the Bureau saw what was happening,
right,
and caused a lot of pain and discontent. One thing I'll say is that there was still a lot of good about the FBI that was discarded or left to atrophy to make way for this new FBI that I thought was a kind of a strategic error at the time. So it was a hard shift. It was a hard shift, and I think Director Mueller had to do that to keep the FBI as a single component.
I agree with you. I mean, if you look back, I've done some talks to some of the 3-letter organizations that we worked with for years. And a lot of those organizations, literally like 1% of the population was in their organization at time 9/11.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people that didn't live through what you and I lived through inside those organizations don't understand that it was, there was a lot of focus on the Bureau, but the whole USIC, I think, had a lot of scrutiny, rightly so. And there was a lot of changes that were proposed that could have changed the outcome of how that organization was ran. When you look back and you look at what's going on now, what's some of the pluses and minuses that you see in the organization, like from a public perspective, right? Because now it's a different perspective. You're looking at it like an American, like all the rest of us. So what's some of the things when you look back that we did really good and some of the things that may be missing nowadays, do you think?
I think the culture of the FBI changed. There are 3 areas that I generally look at. First one's culture. The culture of the Bureau is not what it was when you and I came in. Maybe for better or worse in some areas, but it's different now.
Right.
It's not the same organization. And I think that over the course of years, the old G-man culture was discarded, made way for a new, what I would consider corporatized FBI, which to me didn't make for a better FBI, right? The culture's different. The dedication levels on certain things are a little bit different now. So I think the FBI has to do some soul searching on the culture that it wants to talk about versus the culture that it maintains to keep people safe, to make sure the job's getting done, to make sure that at the end of every day, the American people are safe.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, one of the things when I hear talk about it, because obviously the best country in the world, best people in the world,
no doubt.
There's thousands of men and women inside the FBI and the USIC and federal, state, local governments killing themselves every day trying to make us safe. But when I hear, because I have no idea what's going on now, but when I hear, hey, we're going to just focus on criminal work, or we're just going to focus on this, and a lot of the, at least from the public perspective, we're not worried as much of the national security work, it worries me.
Yeah.
And mainly probably because we lived through it and we saw what that myopic look at the world can do. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, I don't think, one of the things I've heard him say, we're getting back to criminal work. In my time in the Bureau, I never saw us get out of criminal work. Like, when you arrest somebody, I don't care if it's espionage, counterintelligence, that's a criminal violation. And I don't know that people even take the time to ask those questions of people. But when I hear that, it really alarms me because the world is so interconnected and there's so much intelligence that you glean from a national security side of anything. I don't care, counterterrorism, counterintelligence, whatever, cyber, whatever it is. I worry about that. So I don't know if you have the same fears or if that's actually what's going on, but what's your thoughts on that nowadays?
Well, that brings me to the second area that I look at with the Bureau as far as leadership environment. I think they're looking for quick wins.
Yeah.
I think they're looking for public perception management of the Bureau. They're trying to undo some of the things that maybe over the past several years the Bureau didn't do very well or look very good at. So I think they're trying to look at those quick wins. I think they're trying to manage Bureau operations over social media, which, I think that's a questionable approach. We saw that didn't really work out very properly or skillfully during the Charlie Kirk thing. I think that they've got to be careful. They got to balance the load between the criminal work and the national security work, because the national security work is a silent killer.
Sure.
It's a silent killer. It's not the cuts and scrapes and bruises that you see day to day. It's a silent killer. And I think that people, the world that you and I lived in, people wouldn't understand the level of threat and the level of exposure that the United States exists in around the world. And I think that it's better that way, right? Because everybody shouldn't see that. It was our job to keep it away from them. But I think that focusing solely on street crime, that's not the Bureau's thing. I think it's okay to surge into some areas, help our law enforcement partners for certain crime issues or certain, short-term surges into certain city. Okay. But I don't think that the long-term strategic shift away from prioritizing national security is a good thing. Who else is doing it, Bob, besides the FBI domestically?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why it's a zero-sum situation. And I think that the Bureau won't survive if we have another terrorist event in the country and we were worried about picking up drug dealers and, dime bag folks on street corners.
Yeah.
The Bureau won't survive another incident like that.
No, I agree. What's your, when we look at the overall state of our country right now, just as two guys stepping back and looking at it, what's your thoughts on what's going on? I've never seen a more contentious, and by the way, I don't care if somebody's a Democrat, Republican, Independent. I'm not even talking about that. But I very much worry from just being a guy that's been around, when I look at what's going on TV and the divide we have in this country. What's some of your thoughts on that?
I don't know how
we're the best country in the world, but how do we get back to being the way we were?
I think we've become a very uncivil society toward each other. I think we've gotten into the us and them. We live in a binary world. Everything's stop, go, on, off,
sure,
right, left. And I think that, the lunatic fringes on each side of the political environment have taken charge, and everybody in the middle is just kind of watching what's going on. And the lunatic fringes are the ones that are loud, and they're the ones pushing certain agendas. And the leaders, I use the term leaders loosely,
sure,
or the elected. How about this? Elected officials.
Yeah, that's probably a better way of saying it. Yeah.
In our country, are pandering to these very extreme views and very extreme groups. And I don't think they're governing for the overall welfare of the nation as much as they should. They're looking at political agendas more so, and it's disappointing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the things that really bothers me, I think, anymore is everybody follows suit. What I mean by, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, like you can tune to one news channel and they're going to be decidedly left. You can tune to another news channel, they're decidedly right. You can do, and my point is there's no such thing like just news.
Right.
Right. And we can go down every little aspect of our country and it's polarizing. And, I've watched it change. So have you. And, how do you think we get back to unifying? I mean, we'll get into the government and what's going on right now with the Congress and Senate, which I think is appalling, and people aren't getting paid. It's disgraceful. But like, how do you think this gets better? Because over the last several years, I think you would agree it's gotten worse.
It has.
I think there's a big disparity between the haves and the have-nots. That's getting more and more in our country. I think eventually it's going to come to a boiling point because there's so many people out there that have everything and people are just trying to eat. But what's some of the things when we talk about that, like, do you think could make the country get better? I just see it getting more and more divided.
Bob, I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we've hit that critical mass yet to where everybody has to take a step back.
Yeah.
I don't think we've hit that yet. I think we're still escalating in some areas and they're playing political chicken with the welfare of the American people.
Yeah.
And that's where, as an American citizen, and part of the, society, I used to put it this way. I never used to say I thought I could do a better job. Now I think I could do a better job just being John Q. Public with common sense and looking out for folks. And I would say this, that as one of the, I'm disappointed in my chiefs, right? As one of the Indians.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in all my chiefs. Yeah. They're not doing things well. One thing I'll tell you, though, is just I can't see it getting better anytime soon. I think we're going to have another kind of watershed event, Bob, that's going to push one way or the other. I just don't know what that is.
I find it very discouraging, especially because you and I both went through shutdowns when we were in the government and didn't get paid. But the fact that I don't know when it became okay for our Senate and Congress to use Americans as a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part I don't understand. And the fact that nobody's worried about paying the millions of government employees that are killing themselves at making very low wages, by the way, compared to the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how that became okay. And I don't know where we go with it as a country or where things may lay, but there's so many things that our government needs to be doing for us. I mean, we'll get into later just the threats that face our country and the things that we need to be doing to modernizing our government, let alone if you're talking about cyber or AI or quantum or all this stuff that's coming.
Right.
I don't understand why this has become okay.
We tolerate it.
Yeah.
As the American people, we vote these people back into office. There are people who have been in office for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
We tolerate it.
Yeah.
We create that situation. We allow it to happen. I don't know how you fix it. Everybody says, well, what would you do to fix it? I don't know. I think we've reached a point where I'm not sure how you fix it.
I don't know how, though, a governing body that's supposed to be governing and balancing a budget hasn't balanced the budget since like 95 or something.
Because we don't force them to.
No, I agree. But as you and I both know, in the private sector, you don't exist. You go bankrupt. Everybody gets fired or laid off. Like, it just doesn't happen. And there's this culture where, this is what really frustrates me as American. And again, best country in the world with the best people, but why are we treating our people like that? And I just don't understand it. It drives me crazy, quite frankly.
I think some of the tribalism and the partisanship has overwhelmed the American people's requirement for our politicians to do good by everybody as opposed to just their own constituencies.
Yeah.
It's divided up and you only take care of your own.
Yeah.
And the tribalism and the I have my own political agenda has taken over everything.
Yeah. What do you think, from a global perspective, when we talk about the United States, and we're starting to exert a lot of footprints in a lot of different countries, whether it's political, money, arms, the actions we're taking off the coast of America to protect Americans from drugs, the naval presence we're showing to countries that we really never showed before. Where do you think that's headed? Or what do you think about all those things that's going on?
First of all, I mean, it's very polarizing action, right?
Sure.
The camps are already forming for and against. I personally am for it. I mean, the actions that have been taken off our coast. The president of the United States has designated these groups as foreign terrorist organizations.
Yeah.
They are bringing poison into our society. We've told them to stop. We've warned them. They decided to do it anyway. So the fact that we're starting to treat them as enemy combatants, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But again, one of the things I found in my time with government, that the government makes a mistake every time because they do this. If some is good, more must be better, and then too much is just right. Where we're doing that now, we're interdicting these boats coming in, we're showing them force. We are baring teeth. So if some is good, then they're going to do more.
Mm-hmm.
And then where does it end up when too much happens?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm always afraid of the incentivization to take things to a level that it's no longer just, hey, we're not going to tolerate this.
Right.
Versus now we're out doing things that is going to, again, divide the American people. It's going to be called into legality. It's going to be called into morality or ethics. And
sure.
So I'm for it right now because I think we've been allowing these international, whatever you want to call them, crime organizations, organized crime. We've allowed them to kind of run roughshod over us. And even when Obama was in office, he designated international organized crime as a national security threat. He did it because I added international organized crime to the terrorist screening center mission because we used to do only terrorist subjects.
Yeah, exactly.
And we said, you know what? Hey, these people are non-U.S. persons. They're bringing poison into the country. Piss on them. We'll put them on the list too.
Well, you know what? I don't think Americans understand when it comes to the whole drug thing. And this is true. I mean, when I first left the state police, went in the FBI, all I did was buy coke, methamphetamines in Southeast DC for years because that's what we did.
Yeah.
Back then. But then years later, when I'm way up at the tip top of the FBI, me and a very good friend of mine who was the deputy Mark, we end up going to Mogadishu, Somalia, for reasons I'm not going to talk about. But I remember while we were over there, we received a briefing. Now, me and him grew up in the FBI buying drugs and saving the world. And here we are 20 some years later, 30 years between the state police and the FBI. And we're getting a briefing from some 3-letter, organization that just sees like 600 metric tons of cocaine in a tanker. Right. And I remember specifically me and him looking at each other.
Yeah.
And going like, what have we done?
Right.
For our entire career, we were trying, the war on drugs.
Right.
And did we really do anything? And I remember it's a long plane ride back from Mogadishu. And I remember us talking about it, going like, what did we really accomplish? So I think, in some thoughts, you got to have, for extreme problems, you got to have extreme measures.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But I know in my lifetime and all the work I did, no matter how much I tried, I saw that I hadn't put a dent in it.
Well,
you know what I mean? I don't think most people understand the amount of that's actually coming into our country.
Bob, I'm sure you saved some lives by whatever drugs you took off the street.
I mean, I was trying.
When I was getting out of the military, one of the older guys that I worked for, we were getting out, and he said, "Look," he goes, "if you think you changed anything here, you're wrong." He said, "It's like taking a glass of water, you dip your finger in it." He said, "Look at the water. Did it change? No, but your finger's wet.
Yeah,
but the water didn't change. That's your contribution."
Yeah, and I just don't think most people understand how much. Like I said, you said it earlier, and you're 100% right. When you're talking about America, America's the target. It's a target from every nation state, every criminal organization,
every direction.
And everybody either wants to have what you have. Everybody wants to either steal what you've got. Everybody wants to best you in military, best you in banking, best you in political aspirations. And so the amount that's actually coming at us as a country is immense. And, it goes back to what you and I were talking about, and it goes back to our country as a whole. It worries me that we're not all rowing in the same direction.
Right.
And that's the piece that I think about a lot anymore. Like, how do we get the country back? I think it was interesting that, they're renovating the White House, but I didn't particularly like the fact that they're renovating and when millions of government employees aren't getting paid. Now, I know they're supposed to be doing that with private funds, which are a whole nother thing we talk about because they're coming from public companies, which I think is odd.
I think the optics on it probably aren't great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
People are worried about their, social benefits being cut off on 1 November. And we're renovating, it's kind of like, that just doesn't look very good. It's kind of, it could be taken as insensitive or, kind of not tone deaf, right? It's socially tone deaf. But I understand what they're trying to do on some levels. I mean, I've seen some of the postings where, the one side wants to add in a whole bunch of pet projects, billions of dollars for, you name all these other type of social type of things overseas and everything else. And the other side doesn't want to spend that money.
Sure.
Okay, I get that. But now we're not spending any money and we're not supporting the American people and we're not running essential functions of government and we're not providing services and, again, essential government operations for some people. And I think the American people are going to say, we don't care about your petty squabbles.
Yeah.
I got to put gas in my car. I got to feed my kids. I got to pay my bills.
That's right.
And that's where everything comes down in the case of the for reals for the American folks.
Yes.
Bob, they're still getting paid up on the Hill.
Yeah, that's the.
Hey, let me ask you a question. The government's shut down. Have you seen any reduction in your tax burden?
No.
Me either. Right? So all of these things that people are looking at right now thinking,
well, and you hit the nail on the head. You got the House of Representatives and the Senate. They're still getting checks every month, and they've been away from the Capitol for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
and they're getting paid by American taxpayers, and they're literally not even doing their daily jobs. And it's frustrating, I think. And when you go out to Middle America, like forget Washington, New York, LA, go out to the heartlands of America, where people are worried about, like you said, I want to be able to provide food for my family. I want my family to grow up in a safe location, right? I want them to be able to walk around, and I want to be able to provide some type of housing, a house, and something just that I can raise my family. That's what Americans want.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're not in Washington anyway, making sure that's happening, I think it's really disheartening.
Or it should happen as a rule. Not everybody's not going to have the same level of, because I look at it the same way. I was telling my wife this the other day. I said, everybody wants safety. They want a decent place to live. How about some decent food?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, maybe a couple of nice things that you accumulate over the course of your life. There is not one person in the United States that would disagree.
Right.
Not one person.
Right.
So I don't know how we've gotten to this place where it's like everybody is at each other's throats, and it's because of what the politics in D.C.
Well, do you ever notice, like, if you go back, just look at films from years ago, there's like no statesmen or stateswomen in politics anymore. Like in the old days, you could watch films of these statesmen where they could argue all day long.
Oh, yeah.
But the minute the argument was over, they all went out to dinner together. Like they represented each side of their own constituency. But now it's these 30-second aggressive sound bites where, people are making accusations. They're talking about, they're calling people derogatory names and relating them back to war crime, things. And I don't get that point. I think we're better than that as a country, but there's no statesman. I've said this a lot to people where there's probably a few that I don't see or not around because I'm not up in Washington anymore.
But they don't get coverage because they are statesmen and professionals.
You see these 30-second angry sound bites that does nothing but more divide the country than it does pull it together.
Well, that's what happened to the stoic professionalism is what I call it of our national leaders at one point.
Yeah.
Right. They would get fired up once in a while about something, but in general, like you said, they would disagree on certain issues, but they would come together, put things together for the good of the nation, and then they would go back to their kind of squabbling about whatever their professional positions were, right? But they didn't openly hate each other on national television like we have now.
Oh, no, it's caustic. It's absolutely caustic. And all it does is promote the radicals on either side.
That's what I mean. That's where you got the lunatic fringes now are pushing things around. And where does it stop? Where does it stop? That's why I said I don't know where that critical mass is yet, where there's going to be an event and everybody's going to have to step back and it's going to be a big event and everybody's going to have to decide how we're going to do things moving forward.
No, I'm in agreement with you. Let me switch topics for a second because I think this is something that interests me, and I think I'm right on this, but I want to get your point of view. I think AI. We can get into a gazillion different aspects of this, but I'll give you a perfect example. I was talking to my son the other day. My son and his wife, they're both doctors.
And I told you, congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Both medical doctors, but we actually got in this conversation around AI where I think because of the onset of AI, real AI, that I almost think it negates like the old track of education and getting educated and working through jobs. I think there's going to be more 20-something gazillionaires in the next few years based off of AI than the last 20 years of the internet. And so when we talk about AI, and we can get into the threat side of it, the positive side of it, the negative side of it, where do you see this going? Because we had a really good conversation, like I said, where do you need to do whatever 14 years of school or whatever my boy did to be a doctor? And I do think there's sides where you're going to see jobs eliminated in this country. Where do you see AI headed?
Well, I think AI is going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those defining moment technologies, just like when we made the transistor a long time ago, just like when the internet came online, it's going to be like that. And right now, AI is in its infancy. People think AI is, oh my God, this is just fantastic. It's in its infancy.
Oh, sure.
as a technology. They're figuring things out day to day that we don't know about yet, right? For the public consumer.
Right.
And I try to tell people when I go out and give presentations on this, the only reason we have AI available to the people is because of the massive, incredible gains in computing power that have become available over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, right?
Right.
And I think it's just going to become more and more powerful. And I think it's going to create industries and it's going to destroy industries.
I'm agreeing with you.
And I think that from a threat-based thing, I think what we have to be able to do, Bob, is put it back to a conversation of, yes, we can do these things, but should we? And I don't think anybody's looking at that right now. I don't think there's an ethical conversation going on about, well, yeah, we can, but should we? And how do we govern this? Because right now
it's Wild Wild West.
Oh yeah. There's no governance.
No. And once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah, you can't draw it back. It's that genie in the bottle thing, right?
I agree with you.
And I tell you that I think that everything that comes up in technology is going to be weaponized.
Yeah. Oh, history has proven that.
There's no doubt.
Look at the dark web. That was all started for good reasons.
Bob, the dark web was started by the Navy.
Department of Defense.
The onion router
for
and all that.
reasons.
Exactly. For certain political and operational. Guys got a
hold of it and off to the races we go.
Yeah, of course. Somebody was joking about one time when the internet first came online. I wonder how long it took before a naked picture of someone was put across the internet.
Sure.
It's just how human beings are. But I see weaponized AI creating an industry for offensive, defensive AI, matchups. I think there's no longer, these problems aren't human scalable anymore.
Right? Oh, no, I agree. I think I agree with all that. But I also think realistically, and this is what we were talking about when we had this conversation, is I think in the future, people need to be thinking about what is this going to take away and what avenues is it going to open? Because I was in San Francisco the other week giving a speech in the back of a Suburban or whatever, getting driven. I look down, the car next to me has got 2 people in the back, no driver, right? When you start talking about ride services and all that, why are you even going to need those guys 2 years from now? Because a driverless car is going to pull up and I'm going to get in it. And by the way, if the traffic's too heavy, a drone's going to land and I'm going to get in that and it's going to fly me wherever I'm going. These ships that come across the ocean, why do you need a crew? I don't know. I had 1 million miles the other year on a major airline before I left the last CEO job I had. I haven't been in an airport in this country anymore than anybody's driving the train. You know what I mean? It gets you from one. So, when you look far out ahead, just from the job, like, why do I need to go to college if I have an AI computer module? By the way, it looks like you or whoever else because it matches and it's the exact shape of whoever would get along the best with me. And I don't have any breaks and I don't got to go away for Thanksgiving. I can do a 4-year degree in 19 months. I can, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of this that I think is coming and I don't think we're talking about it as a country. I think a lot of people hedge on it because they don't want people to realize there's going to be a lot of layoffs, especially in production lines and things like that where you can automate it through robots. And it's funny when you think about that from a country perspective, how much I think will change people's lives in the next coming years. And I think it's not going to be a bell curve. I think when this actually takes off, it's just going to go straight up with, how it's going to change society.
Well, I think that. Well, look at right now. We're not even handling the advent of social media well.
Oh no,
right? That's become just a disaster.
Yeah.
And when this AI stuff comes online for certain skill fields and certain job families and everything, you're right. It's going to be a complete just ascending curve. Bob, people are going to, but like you said, nobody wants to talk about it because they don't want people to be scared that you're not going to have a job in 5 years. I watched a video the other day. These guys were all AI engineers and they were talking among themselves and they said, we won't have jobs in 3 to 5 years. The AIs will do our job.
Yeah,
they will do our jobs.
That's exactly right.
So you can have AI creating AI and everything else. And I just think people aren't willing to talk about it. It's that whole, if I stick my head in the dirt and I'm not looking, maybe it won't happen.
Yeah. Oh, it's coming like a freight train.
Oh, it's that boulder is rolling down the side of the mountain. We're just waiting for it to hit bottom.
Yeah.
And I think that the weaponization of AI, though, is the big thing that people aren't going to understand.
Well, let's transition that, because I got to be honest. I worry a lot about this, and I'll tell you why. And I've said this before on this show, and it's not a lie. It's a true story. When I left the government, a large piece of what I owned globally was cyber. And I thought I knew what was going on. I'd brief the Attorney General every day. I'd brief the Senate and the Congress. I'd go up to the White House. And I could tell you, when I left the government in 2015 and I came out to run a cyber practice in a fairly large consulting company, we did a couple thousand breaches in 3 years. That's like a breach a day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to the FBI one time. That's it. And the time I talked to them, God bless the men and women in the FBI, they couldn't help me. Now, there's thousands of companies doing that amount of breaches. And for the first time, it hit me, like it literally hit me, like everything I told everybody was wrong. Not wrong because I'm stupid or I didn't care. I didn't know. Like I had no idea the amount of stuff that never rose to the level of where I was. And when you start thinking now of how much is going to go on with AI and throw quantum computing in and stuff, like, where are we? Like as a country, like it really worries me.
Well, I saw a video one time and someone said it was about, they were talking about AI and all these things. And they said, these nerds are going to kill us all with this stuff. And when you start adding, we have AI right now, and we're using mostly for what I would consider to be public consumption. It's classical computing platforms. When you start adding quantum computing into the mix with classical computing, with AI, who knows what we're going to get out of that, because people don't even understand what quantum computing is, right? Because I remember we had to put together a briefing one time for the director, and these guys came in. And I used to have the operational technology division. And those guys, I bring in a bunch of PhD, pointy head guys, and they come in and they say, well, and they start going through and they have all these pictures and everything. I said, oh, hang on a second. He's a freaking lawyer. Okay. You can't come in with quantum entanglement and all this nonsense. Explain to me, how do we gain advantage over our adversaries using this technology? And how do we deny advantage to our adversaries, meaning criminals, national security threats,
whoever,
right? Let's keep it there. But what they were looking at was the ability for quantum computing, once it's field capable. Right now, they do it in labs. They do it in very controlled environments. Very expensive.
I've said the same thing.
Right? Everybody keeps
the stuff people are using out here isn't real AI.
No. When you're talking about all the the smart guys and ladies other places, different, right?
Exactly.
When you're looking at DARPA level stuff and everything, okay.
But eventually that'll get out.
Oh, it does. It seeps out.
Yeah, that's right.
But we have to make it affordable and scalable.
Right. And scalable. That's the biggest thing.
Right.
Yep.
And that's why we have AI now. It's been around for a while, but we just couldn't scale the computing. But I think it's going to come out. And I keep telling you, I listen to all these people talk. One guy said this. It sounded kind of corny at the time, but he was talking about the melding of these technologies. And he said, we are like children that are playing with tools of the gods. Mm-hmm. We don't know what we're doing with this stuff yet. We're just kind of jerking around, and we're going to create something that, who knows what it's going to turn out to be.
Worry, and I agree with you, but here's, just putting it in layman's terms, and I'm sure it was the same for you. When I leave the state police, go in the FBI and the government, a long time ago, I'm a new agent going through the academy. I remember some agent stepping up and saying, you're coming into the FBI at the best time because we're going to be paperless and we're going to go to all these infrastructure systems. So, I'm a new guy. Well, 20 some years later, when I'm sitting 2 doors down from the director and my inbox is still 3 feet high, and now instead of one computer screen, I got 3 computer screens. And instead of 200 emails, I got 800 emails a day. Half of them are top secret. We didn't fix any of that. No. And so now when I look at, especially because of what I've done in the private sector for the last 10 or 11 years, when I look at, in the old days, you could throw out a 64-bit hexadecimal code or 124-bit encrypted code. No one's going to break into your stuff. When you throw in AI and quantum, that doesn't touch nothing. Like somebody will get into that
instantaneously.
And so when I look at our country, again, greatest country in the world, best people in the world. But when I look at our government, one, they can't even solve getting each other paid and coming back to work. Right. What they should be doing, and this is just me as Bob Joe Blow American. like worried about my kids, worried about the future of our country. There's a tidal wave coming. I'm not saying this loosely. I really believe this. Much like 9/11 was on the terrorist side, except it's going to be through cyber and AI and quantum. There is a tidal wave coming. And if this country is not prepared to defend and by the way, I know there's other organizations working on bits and pieces of this, but I think it's too big for just the government or just the private sector. I think there's got to be a combination. But this really worries me because I don't think the government's probably changed that much since I left 10 or 11 years ago. And there's no way in hell we were ready for this, in my opinion. And I think that tidal wave's coming, And so where do we go from here?
I think it's on its way, Bob. And here's what, again, like you, I go out and talk to people based upon what we used to do. And I ask them a question. I'll tell them, why do you think the Chinese or the Russians
or pick a country?
Yeah, take your pick.
Pick a country.
Why do you think they put up TikTok?
Sure.
Why do you think they did? Remember the Russians put out that one, what are you going to look like when you're 60, whatever. Why do you think they do that? And people say, I don't know, because it's fun. No, they're collecting data.
Exactly.
They're collecting information about their primary adversary, which is America.
That's right.
So and what are they doing when they're hoovering up all that data? What are they doing? They're training their AIs. And why do they collect all of our encrypted data? It's encrypted. They can't break it yet.
That's right.
You know why? Because they will be soon.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to take some of that information that still has strategic value, and they're going to cut our advantage or our supremacy in certain areas down to nothing.
Right.
And those are things that are coming. People sit there and look at me and say, what? These are the things we used to have to think about.
And I'll tell you something, Chris, if you asked any man or woman nowadays, I would bet my pension on this. If your house is at the bottom of a mudslide or a fire and you had to get one thing out of your house, you're going to get your cell phone.
Yeah.
It's not going to be family pictures.
Nope.
It's not. If you had one thing only you could get. Why? Because your whole life's tied to it. Your personal stuff's tied to it. Your business stuff is tied to it. Your government pensions is tied to it.
Right.
And going back to that digital fingerprint that you're talking about, and now you multiply that into our country and the adversaries that are coming at us and the state, I would bet you, of our infrastructure and everything else that's going on. This is what frustrates me, again, with the Congress, the Senate, and our government. Like, I don't care what party you're at. Like, there's a wave coming. And I just don't. And again, there's thousands of men and women inside our government killing themselves every day to make us safe.
Right.
But I just don't see us looking that far ahead anymore. And unfortunately, I think it's going to bite us.
Well, it is. It's not. But the problem with the people that are working hard to protect us every day, Bob, is that I think they're being sent on a fool's errand.
And I don't think they have a voice. I got to be honest.
And you get a lot of folks like you and I can sit and look at this stuff. They're looking at it too, and they're saying, we can't take care of this. This is an intractable problem. I used to tell people what I felt like a lot of times was a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest.
Yeah.
I couldn't win.
Yeah.
I could not win.
Yeah.
I was handicapped from the start. My adversaries don't have the same legal, ethical, or moral, just limitations that I had.
No. And there's no like board of directors that you got to go through. There's no like checks and balances.
No. They are operating on a different level of, I would just say, operational freedom. I'll call it that, right?
I'm in total agreement with you.
And that's why I used to tell people, we can't win. All we can do is try to hopefully get enough of a draw between us and them, or a deterrent environment that, hey, if you do this, the consequences may not be good for you, right? So they'll say, maybe we won't do that. But other than that, we're not winning.
Yeah.
And then you talk about, and everybody says that the U.S. has the best quantum computing.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah.
We're not putting any money into that. I mean, government-wise, that we're aware of, right, that I can talk about. But I think our adversaries are, because they see that's where everything's going. And
I think like you, and we've touched base on this before here, but if you look at the overall battlefield around the world and the way battles like in Ukraine, the way like war fighters are fighting, 180 degrees different than any other engagement that anybody's ever seen between drones and AI and battlefield intelligence and tracking. But I think you multiply that across especially as you say it, with bad guys, they don't need to ask permission. They can just go reverse engineer stuff.
They do whatever.
Do it on our attack vector 5 minutes after the first one. Did it work? No. Okay, let's change it. I think it changes the dynamics of all this.
Right.
And this is, I guess, my bigger thing on the country, the government, and what we're looking at. Like, we've got to get past these divides as our country about holding, salaries over people's heads so another party will, deferred or whatever, when we should be thinking about stuff like this. And I honestly think it's not going to take 6 months to change this in our government. To shore up infrastructures and start things that we can use to protect ourselves from when this wave hits. When we talk about this, one of the things I wanted to pick your brain on, because it was big when we were in the government with private sector government interaction. And I don't know where it is nowadays with the academia and different private sector companies. But I said this earlier, and I want your thoughts on it. But I think this problem anymore is too big for the government. Like, I think there does need to be a much better cohesive interaction with private sector companies that have advanced technologies, able to turn budgets on a dime to help us when it comes to defending against adversaries. I hear none of this being talked about, by the way. Maybe it is, back in the secrets of the government. What's your thought on that? I mean, what's your thought on just the perspective of threats against us and, how we would go about defending our country in these kind of aspects?
Well, the government brings considerable resources to things, right?
Yep.
But the government can't cover this. Every problem we have now, Bob, is complex, layered. It's got so many different.
Not one answer.
No, there's no silver bullet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
None. I actually keep a little silver bullet on my desk that my wife bought me because I look at it every time I start thinking there's a single solution for something. But I think the government and the private sector have to figure out how they're going to work together to protect the American people and the American market and the American way of things. But right now, you saw a couple times during the last several years, the FBI has been severely criticized over how it had certain interactions with some Silicon Valley companies and tech companies and how they manage those relationships during certain political environments. And I don't know how you recalibrate the government and the private sector, because a lot of the private sector folks are very left-leaning. And we have a very right-leaning government right now. How do you bring them together for a common purpose? Like, and you and I grew up during the Cold War, right? I actually miss the Soviets because there were rules. There were certain structures.
And you knew what they were going to do. And
it was a gentleman's game on a lot of levels, right?
No, that was like, you're right on that.
You know what I mean? There was polarity.
You could look at a book and that's the way it was going to happen.
And you knew how they were going to do things, right?
Yeah.
It's not like that now. Someone said it, and I forget who it was, but they said we had the Soviet dragon, the bear.
Yeah.
And once we killed the dragon or the bear, now we have thousands of poisonous snakes everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Which was better?
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's kind of where we are right now. Is like, how do we bring ourselves back to that? Hey, we have everybody out there trying to take us down and take what we have, like you said, and try to do us in. How do we reunite as a United States public to say, not happening? Mm-hmm. We have a very short memory. We're ready to elect communists into office in some of our major cities.
It's amazing. I don't get it.
I mean, and if most people though, that are voting for these folks, if you told them, hey, do you remember the Soviet Union? No, what's that?
Yeah.
They don't even remember.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you bring everybody back. I think we need a common uniting focus that the United States can get behind. I'm not talking like a straw man, boogeyman type of thing.
Yeah, no, I got what you're saying.
But I'm talking about what are we trying to do here to survive as a society and not just as a collection of cliques around the country. That's what we are right now. We're a collection of the cliques around the country.
I've never seen in my time, I'm in my 60s, I've never seen the country this divided. And I'm not even touching the political side. I'm just talking as Americans.
Socially. Yeah.
As Americans, and I'm sure it bothers you like it bothers me because we've got great people, but one of the things is, how do we get back to a common focus? And why we're doing all this other stuff, it's stuff like we're talking about the infrastructure of the U.S. government in our country that I worry about, because we're so busy fighting all these one-off things and trying to do different things. It's no different. My dad used to tell me you can do one thing really good, or you can do a whole bunch of stuff half-ass.
Right.
My dad, and I never understood it till I was an adult, and then I totally got it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I worry that we're not watching the ball on this stuff, and this is drawing us off sides. You know?
I agree, and I don't know what to do about it from where I'm sitting out in the peanut gallery now.
Yeah.
And when you and I were in the government, we used to go to certain meetings.
Sure.
And you could sit around and say, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is what the national leadership is thinking?
Yeah.
This is what we're doing?"
Yeah.
I used to go to meetings and I would just sit there and say, "Wow." And there were certain names that you would know that I'm sitting in meetings with these people. I'm thinking we are in deep trouble.
Deep trouble.
So I don't know, Bob. I wish I had better answers. Somebody asked you, told me one day, "Why don't you run for office?" Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Why not?
It's become too much of a cesspool.
We need good people.
Hey, it's too much of a cesspool. I don't mind if you want to attack me personally.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Oh no, they'll attack your whole family.
It's my family.
Sure.
It's my friends.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're looking for some dirt on somebody I knew 10 years ago.
Oh, it's 100% true. Whether it's true or not, it's coming out.
Oh, and if they can't find any, they're going to make some up.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And that's why I just can't have that going on.
I think I'd get shot. I'd be too honest. Some crazy guy would shoot me if I was running for governor or running for something.
You know what happens too? I think a lot of folks go in with that attitude, I'm going to go in and make some change, and they get assimilated by the machine. And they're still fighting and kicking as much as they can, but the machine's already kind of put them in their place and boxed them in. And I just don't know if one or two guys can make it happen when you have that much of a broken system. But we do need our country is in great dire need of principled leadership.
I agree.
And I mean, not a bunch of folks go in there and start rattling about certain political issues.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about looking at the country. Like you said, you go places and most of the folks just want a few things.
And the one thing that I think people, and it's following on what you just said, is like the one thing we all have in common is we're Americans. Forget everything else, right?
Yeah.
And we got to get back to we're Americans. And how do we make America better and bring things together? The political and socioeconomical divide has got to go away.
Well, we got to figure out, I don't think it'll ever go away, Bob, but I think we got to minimize it.
Yeah.
Right? We got to bring it to a point where it's manageable.
Yeah.
Like I look at people and I say, you know what? They do really well in life and they do better than me. That's okay because I'm okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
100%.
We're not there.
No, not there at all.
We're not there. And I think that's the problem is when you can
Yeah.
look at each other and say, hey, they have a couple more nice things than I do, but I got a really decent house.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And once we get to that kind of a balance again on things,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you'll never make it go away because there's always going to be like, boy, I'd really like to have a car like Bob's.
Yeah.
Right? My car's an old piece of crap.
Yeah.
But I have a car. Right? I don't know how we're going to get back to that. And I think we're going to suffer as a people if we can't figure out how to get rid of, like you said, we have to be Americans, not put your desired prefix - American.
That's right.
And once we start that, I mean, now, like I said, we have a bunch of cliques around the country.
Yeah.
It's like when I've talked about leadership, teamwork over the years, right? When you have a group of people who are co-located working together, that's not a team. They're just working in the same spot. They can even be working on the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have folks that are integrated by ideology, beliefs, values, whatever, that's a team.
That's right.
And we don't have
common goals,
common objectives, common goals, common beliefs, whatever binds them together, right? Common hardship, whatever. We don't have that anymore.
Yeah. We got to get back to basics.
Well, we got to figure something out because this isn't going to, we can't manage this for too much longer. And I really think that, looking at from where you and I used to sit, I don't think the world's gotten any safer or better. I think the world's become a much more dangerous, hazardous place. And I don't know if our leadership is really reading everything right.
I agree.
So I wish I had a better answer for you, but again, I'm sitting out here in the peanut gallery now. So
I think it's been a good discussion. Chris Piehota, thanks for coming in.
Bob, thank you. Pleasure. Great to see you again. It's been too long.
Great to see you. Great American. Come back next time to Bob Let's Talk. Many more interviews coming. Peace.